I was really hoping we'd get some snow this week. I don't think we will.
That's all right with me. I'll disagree with you on the snow.
I just feel like we haven't gotten any snow in 2 years now. Because last year was awful for snow, too.
It seems like we got a fairly late measurable snow last year.
We got one about 6-inch snow. That was it.
Yeah.
Nothing compared to
about
the year before when we had a 48-incher.
Yeah.
That was awesome.
That was terrible. Well, what's good use of this time?
Well, nothing else is probably on my mind right now. Katie's pregnant.
Oh,
So that's
congratulations.
fun. Which we've just learned about this. So nothing else really on my mind today.
All right.
Not sure what else to say about that right now.
Well, I would imagine that along with excitement comes some anxiety.
Yeah, there's some anxiety. Mostly about her finishing the stuff she's got to finish. So we just have a lot of stuff that she still has to finish on her residency and all sorts of stuff, and we're wondering how another child is going to fit into that.
Not to mention 2 children are twice as expensive.
And that, yeah, twice as expensive, and so another reason we need her to finish her residency so she can make more money. So yeah, I don't know when we'll tell a whole lot of people about that, but that's what's on my mind right now.
Do you have any thoughts or plans about how you and when you would tell people?
Oh, we'll probably. I mean, it's really early right now. I think she's only like 4 weeks right now.
Okay.
So we still have a little while to let people know, I think. Maybe around Mother's Day.
Okay.
Maybe a little bit earlier, I'm not sure. Yeah, I guess we're just going to have to go into the planning stages for that.
How did you break the news the first time?
Well, the first time we've been planning on it.
Okay. So this is a surprise.
Yeah.
I gotcha.
The first time we've been planning on it a lot harder, so it was very exciting, and it's still exciting now, just a lot less expected, so a lot less planned. The first time though, I mean, Katie was still trying to finish stuff. I mean,
Yeah.
She graduated from her counseling program the same day she went into labor. She finished up her internship the same day she went into labor, and she's dictating emails to her professors for me saying she won't be in the next day, but she'll get her stuff to them, and
God bless her.
yeah.
She is conscientious.
So she'll be fine.
Yeah. So what else? How much does she have to do? You said a lot. But
2,000 hours, and she's at 450 right now, and she only has about 3 years left to do it. So she needs to up her workload, her caseload. And we were getting to a point where we were starting to see an opening with Wesley being old enough to maybe go to preschool in the fall. She could do a lot more. And maybe that's not a possibility now.
I hear that there's some things to work through.
Yeah.
Well, congratulations anyway.
Well, thanks.
Yes, so, I mean, how might I help you in thinking through this?
Boy, I don't know. It's all going to be fine. I'm not that worried about it. I'll worry about it today and be fine with it in 9 months. Is sort of
So
where
you
I'm
just
at right
found
now.
out this week?
Yeah.
Okay.
We heard from the doctor at 1 o'clock.
Oh, today?
Well, yeah, she
Okay.
took
She
the
did
test
the home test, okay.
before now, but
Yeah, just confirmed it.
half an hour ago,
Okay.
sort of confirmed it. So we're figuring that out.
How is she with the news?
I don't think she wants to be at work right now, but she is. She's fine with the news.
Okay.
We're both excited. We're both like,
Sure.
but at the same time, we're both anxious about it.
Yeah.
Definitely more than when Wesley came, I think.
Yeah.
I think we want a little bit more spacing, but that'll be all right.
Well, they'll be playmates for each other.
Yeah, it's all gonna be okay. I haven't heard anything more about whether anybody wants me to move, so for right now, I'm just gonna pretend I'm not. I know the bishop and a lot of the district superintendents are in Israel right now, so they're not making those decisions right now anyway.
Oh, what a great place to make those decisions.
Right? Yeah.
And looking for a little divine inspiration.
I feel like everybody I know is over in Israel right now. People who aren't Methodist, people who are Methodist.
And there have been a lot of trips lately to Israel.
Maybe it's a good time of year to go.
Yeah. Maybe it is.
Well, I guess a lot of people probably go during Lent.
Yeah, I think it's the rainy season right now in
Yeah.
Israel. So
That sounds
be wet.
great.
Yeah.
At least the dust won't get in your mouth. You don't have to bang it off your
Yeah,
sandals.
sandals, yeah. So you said you're going to pretend that you're just not going to move. Does that mean you're not likely to think about or strategize plans if a move comes along?
Right now, I'm just trying to strategize for the future of the churches I'm at.
Okay.
That's really where I find myself right now.
Okay.
Good news is I feel like time is opening up a little bit more. I'm up to 131 hours with the CPE supervision, or with the CPE hours here. So I'm feeling good about hours now.
Good.
Because we have 6 weeks left to get just a few more hours.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that'll give me time to make sure all the other stuff is done for class and such. So I feel like time is opening up a little bit more. Which is a weird thing to hear me say, right?
And what are your plans for that time opening up?
Finish my homework.
Uh,
I sent you a one-page
Yeah, I
paper
saw it.
yesterday.
Yeah, I got it. Well, it was more than one page.
It
I
was
think.
more.
Yeah, but that's okay.
Yeah, sorry about that.
It was interesting. I read it, and it was. Yeah.
I started to write on the thing we did with Kenton, and then I was like, no, I'll just do this other thing instead, because I've written about Bowen theory at length already.
Yeah, that seemed like an interesting tool, interesting way to take a look and do some assessing and.
Yeah, it's typically
what
a
you're
way to
doing.
assess congregations, but I
Yeah.
thought it fit really well with
Yeah, I thought it did
sort of
too.
Prizer's care gates and everything.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's what I'll spend my time on, sort of planning for my churches where they are right now. Maybe starting on some stuff for the last year of candidacy, hopefully the last year if I pass interviews. Because there's a lot of extra stuff I have to do to get done with candidacy next year too. If I'm
So
gonna,
what more?
I have to, in July, I have to request my packet to finish, and they'll send me a packet with a whole list of questions I have to write reports on, and whole list of theological questions. And when you first go for commissioning in the Methodist Church, it's a lot more theological questions. I think these are more practical questions.
Okay.
We have to do a Bible study on the book of Ruth. They do a different Bible study every year, but for next year's class, it's on the book of Ruth.
Mm-hmm.
And you have to actually
Babe
go through
Ruth?
it with your church. Yes.
Oh, okay.
Actually, the candy bar company.
Oh, okay. Sorry, that was just.
So I'll have to do that. We're supposed to do some sort of project. I haven't looked too much into the project yet. I imagine some of the stuff can fit in with what I already do at my churches. Hopefully, I think that's their intent anyway. But it's still extra work on top of what I'm doing already in the next year. And that's all due next January. And then there's interviews in February for it. And then they'll tell me if I'm allowed to be ordained or not. We'll see how that goes.
So how do you understand the Methodist Church's intention with all of this?
What do you mean by intention?
I mean, what do they hope they learn, or what do they hope that you learn, or I mean, what's the goal? I mean, other than ordination for you.
Well, it's funny you asked that. I was having a conversation with one of the visitors yesterday, Dan Garrett. He's a friend of mine who just happened to show up, I guess, because he knew people yesterday. And he used to be on the board of Ordained Ministry, and he hates it. He, like a lot of people, see it as gatekeepers and people who are not very affirming of the people who are working to be ordained. And so you have a whole generation of people who have just been told they're not good enough. Or 75% of them have been told at some point they're not good enough. I don't really see it that way. I do see it as a gatekeeping tool, but in a denomination where you have guaranteed appointment, basically tenure, and it's really hard to get fired, I am perfectly fine with him having extremely high standards and then turning people away every now and then and telling them to come back next year.
So being turned away.
I've been turned away before.
Okay.
The first time I went through for commissioning, they said, come back next year.
Okay.
Try again. Try harder next time. And that was frustrating at the time. I think I took it a lot better than other people.
What do you think the difference was between you and other people?
I'd already had a church for like 3 or 4 years, and I knew I was still going to have a church, and that's the way I was able to look at it.
Okay.
Other than the pay raise, it didn't mean that much to me. I'm still at the church I was even after I failed right now. I got a promotion even after I failed that time and got moved to a full-time appointment after I graduated from seminary, and so it doesn't really matter that much to how I do my ministry. Ordination doesn't. I think the affirmation part from the larger body is important, and I think in some ways the understanding of authority that comes with it puts a bigger responsibility on me. But as far as how I do my ministry, whether I'm ordained or whether I'm not ordained, it doesn't really change that.
Okay. I have a nephew. He's married to my niece. I still call him my nephew. Who?
I'll allow it.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Who was just ordained in the Presbyterian Church in November. And he's been out of seminary for 2 years. And actually, what he wants to do is to go into Navy chaplaincy, and he will. But Presbyterian Church is like a lot of others that require a parish experience of a certain period before you can do that. And but there's no there's no commissioning in the Presbyterian Church. It's like the Lutheran Church. You know, you're either called to ordain ministry or you know, you could do word and service, but that's,
Yeah.
we still haven't defined what that is. But so he was, you know, he got his MDiv and got it with, you know, high marks. Got good reviews from. He did CBE in seminary and did an internship and got good marks. But the presbytery then put him through a series of tests,
Mm-hmm.
which you know, we all get those tests. But one of their tests is to do something with the most obscure Bible text that they could find, and you're supposed to exegete it with no resources,
Neat.
you know, on a written test. And so he failed that part.
Mm-hmm.
And he took it 6 months later, and he failed that part again because, you know, Leviticus 7 verse 8 is not embedded in his memory.
Mm-hmm.
You know, but at any rate, he finally was able to pass the tests, and then they have their candidates to deliver a sermon before the entire presbytery. Well, no, the entire presbytery is invited. Anyone who's an elder, be it a ruling elder or a teaching elder, is allowed to go and just pick that sermon to death. And he finally passed that, and it was a 2-year process to go through this. And I understand gatekeeping, but the way that was described to me by him was like, no, there's a denomination that doesn't trust their theological education system. And it really, that really kind of bothers me, because I think theological education is right now so financially tenuous in all denominations that that being second guessed all the time by church elders, rulers, bishops, what have you, I would imagine that would be just a bear to have to live with. And I wouldn't want to do that. I mean, I don't mind questions if they're useful, and I don't mind tasks to prove competency in something, but nitpicky stuff and second guessing is not my particular cup of tea.
Yeah.
But it doesn't sound like you're experiencing that kind of...
I'm not. Other people might say they have.
Okay.
I can understand a strong emphasis on the theological side as far as it goes to contextualization of your own local theologies. Because I do think that's somewhere that seminaries fail. Is contextualizing theology into a local theology and learning how to speak through that.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
I mean, yeah, they don't know how it works in Frederick County.
Or Page County.
Or Page County, or anywhere else or as you get further into southwestern Virginia. It works differently, and you have to be able to understand theology differently, or at least understand where other people are coming from, even if you have a different understanding of theology.
Sure. You have to be able to communicate.
Yeah, and I do think that's one thing that seminaries can't really teach very well outside of student pastor positions. I mean, I was a student pastor. I was a lot further ahead than everybody else, but by this point in our ministry, we're all the same place. I had like a 6-month head start.
Okay. Yeah.
When it came to that.
Well, you know, we had to do what was called first year field education, where we were assigned a congregation to be working in on Sundays,
Mm-hmm.
which was fine. I mean, you get to the worship experience, you get to do some visits and that kind of thing. But there's 6 other days of the year that you don't get to experience, and we're also required to do a 12-month internship
Mm-hmm.
between our second year and our senior year.
Mm-hmm.
And well, that's usually when it's done. Traditionally, that's when it's done. So it's an extra move. You move somewhere, and then you move back to seminary for another year. And so yeah, you know, get as good as you can get. But my internship was in Arlington, so I got the whole DC kind of thing. But my first call was in rural Page County, and it's like there's a little bit of difference.
Definitely different. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So I was wondering how the church could promote internships or student pastorates in situations that would be like most first calls
Mm-hmm.
are. So anyway, that's my little
I'm working on it.
bugaboo. Okay, good.
Yeah, that's one of the projects I'm working on for that other coursework I was writing about yesterday.
Mm-hmm.
One of our projects might look like a sandbox in somewhere like a Winchester instead of in a DC.
Mm-hmm.
Some sort of fellows program. There's a Lilly endowment right now of like $1 million over 5 years to do a project like that, which would be great to get.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Remember us when you
A lot
get
of
that.
stuff has to
endowment.
fall into place for that to work.
Yeah.
We're still brainstorming what it looks like exactly. Yeah, so I have those sort of projects going on with my other education I'm doing right now. I just like education, I guess, accidentally.
Well, I'm convinced that that continuing in education in a formal kind of way
Mm-hmm.
only helps.
Yeah.
You know, heck, I've been in school for, let's see, I'm 57, so I've been in school pretty much for 51 years.
It's a lot of years.
Yeah. But eventually you realize that, yeah, there might be a reward of a certificate or a diploma or a degree, but I'm kind of
Degrees don't really do much for me.
I like the learning. I like the learning.
People ask me if I'd ever want to get a demon. I say, why would I ever want to stop being a master of divinity?
Yeah, I tell people what my doctorate is, and I say it's a D-Min, and they stop and said, is that ironic that a Christian minister has a doctorate and it's called a demon?
Yeah.
I said, yeah, it probably is.
Spend most of the rest of your life exercising.
Exercising, yeah.
Gotta exercise that demon.
Right.
I'm trying to think of other stuff to talk about today. So, I guess I can talk a little bit about that thing I brought up earlier. This fell out of my pocket. That whole Lilly Foundation thing. So me and another pastor, we're in the same cohort working together, and we're in a peer group together, and we've lived together at other times. She's Rhonda. You know Rhonda.
Mm-hmm.
We lived together for a while.
Yeah, okay. I was.
When I was
I
in
was,
seminary, Katie and I lived in her basement.
I was going to say, is this confessional time now?
No,
but,
no.
I know. But now that you remembered it was Rhonda, that's fine. Okay.
I forgot that you knew who she was.
Yeah.
So we're in this class together, and it's based on sort of alternative Christian communities. It's a 2-year-long thing, and one of the points of it is not just to do academic work, but to actually launch something.
Mm-hmm.
And I've sort of had in my mind for years what it looks like, for over a year now, what it looks like to have some sort of alternative Christian community based on co-working or coffee shop, and also it be a church at the same time as a way to cultivate a new type of community or to be more welcoming to people. And she's been coming at it from a different angle and thinking what it looks like to have sort of an intentional faith community, still based in bringing people together somehow in Christian fellowship in a different way, sort of neo-monasticism.
Mm-hmm.
And as we've talked and thought about a lot of stuff, our ideas have sort of become intertwined accidentally. And talking to our boss in Winchester anyway, he's been very into it and excited about it. He's no longer going to be our boss in a couple months because he's retiring, and so we're not sure what the new boss thinks about all this. But at the same time, there's just been a lot of signs that the Holy Spirit's been pushing us towards stuff like this. One of the things that has been difficult is knowing that the place we're looking at doing ministry in, either there's a pastor there already, which there is, and she's happy where she's at, and I don't want to ask anybody to move her or anything. That would be extremely inappropriate. If she wants to move, I've told them I'd take that church. I'd move to that church, and I didn't even know I was allowed to do that till my district superintendent told me to say it. I said I'd love to take that church if she wants to move, but as it is, she doesn't really want to move. At the same time, we've almost been talking about what it looks like to create new ministry positions for ourselves in this area, somehow connected to that church, but not part of that church.
Mm-hmm.
And to create extension minister positions. And so I'm trying to think of what that looks like. And if we're looking at moving in that way, do I quickly talk to the district superintendent and tell him, remember how I told you I was open to moving? I'm not open to moving anymore, because it's something that might be, and not something that's a definite.
Mm-hmm.
There's just been a lot of movement of the Holy Spirit in this whole thing. Things keep popping up and accidentally setting things in line for us without us doing anything.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds like an entrepreneurial vision of ministry.
It would be very much. Whether that entrepreneurial is through a partnership with Shenandoah and students and figuring it, or whether it's through a launch year fellowship through the conference, or whether it's through setting up co-working space in a particular building. There's a lot of ways it can be entrepreneurial. Right now we're looking at different partnerships. We're looking at opportunities for partnerships with the university so that they can be more connected with local church, which is something that's been in their background for a long time. They have their Institute of Church Professions, and they are a Methodist school, so I'm trying to push them to be more connected to the Methodist Church in the area. As an alumni,
Makes sense.
for some reason they like me there. But it's a great asset we have in our community, and it's something they might be open to, which a fellowship of this sort of thing would give the sort of, I would almost be taking on a new role in mentorship, or almost sort of pseudo-supervising. We won't call it CP, but sort of walking people who are learning all this stuff in school and helping them to contextualize it for the Trump country we live in. I won't call downtown Winchester exactly Trump country, but it's pretty close to it. Frederick
surrounded
County is.
by Trump.
Frederick County is. Winchester maybe not as much.
So
But
what's,
I don't know what my role looks like in the next 6 months to a year, depending on how things roll in the next 6 to 8 weeks or so. We're in conversations with this church. We're in conversations with the Mission of Wisdom Foundation. They're sending people out here this month to walk through properties and to talk more with us about the Lilly Foundation and what they want out of a grant proposal. We're in conversations with our boss about what stuff like this looks like, and a lot of things I think could be converging in the next month or so on this whole project. And at the same time, I could be moving anywhere in Virginia.
so, as I hear it, maybe that's your biggest concern is that things will start. Yeah, I mean, it sounds like things are rolling now, but as
Yeah.
it gains momentum, you might have to take a sharp turn
Yeah.
to the right, or
Yeah, I'm honestly starting to think if the DS really sees all this stuff happening right now, he's going to pump the brakes on asking anybody to move me around. I think realistically this is a possible way for me to stay where I'm at for another year.
okay.
Yeah, more and more. About 3 weeks ago, I would have said a month ago, I would have said there's at least a 60% to 80% chance of me moving, and now I'm saying there's maybe a 20% chance of me moving.
Okay.
I'm seeing it as less and less of a possibility, especially if I keep up moving forward on these plans. But in our church, I don't know how presumptuous it looks like to create all these different things because we're in a hierarchical church structure. And
So
like I told you earlier, I'm not even ordained.
Well, so who would identify it, you think, as being presumptuous?
Me.
Okay.
is what we've learned over the last 4 or 5 months. We almost feel like there's a culture set in place, I think, where we feel like we're not allowed to venture out and break into those sort of things or go outside of the churches
Norm.
and missions we've been given already.
Yeah.
There's an extreme amount of guilt that I have doing all this other stuff on the side, maybe with another church that I'm not being paid by. Even though my production at my churches isn't any less than what it has been. There's still a little bit of guilt in me about all that because I feel like I've been given this mission to be in these places, and here I am going off and doing other stuff. So I think there's sort of that culture that's in place in our system, especially with itineracy, and you're given this place and you're called to this place. But I think also entering into a culture where you begin with gatekeepers, you feel like you're kept inside a gate the rest of your career after that, maybe a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
Which is something interesting to feel.
So the gate is not letting you out; it's keeping you in.
Yeah, I had to do a lot of really thinking about how I could allow myself to do something like this, and I figured it out